end this in a bit. We'll wait for a few more people to join. But before I move forward with the chair's remark, I just want to thank everyone really for participating this morning. And I know it's been a really busy time in the year for most of us, but last, I want to thank our general manager this morning. I got a call this morning on my way, and they said, Councillor Ila Shantiri, and we had a message from our general manager, Steve Willis, from the city of Ottawa. I want to thank Angela, and I want to thank our managers from the other CAs, Sal, Summer, for working very closely with our city. City of Ottawa, I know that very busy working input and information on the official plan and on all conservation authority issues. So I want to thank you this morning and your team for putting those presentation and with the city and of course other CAs. So thank you very much, Angela.
Welcome.
Without further ado, we can start. I will go item number 2, approval of SNC Board of Director agenda and the supplemental agenda. Any changes? We have a recommendation. Director of the Board of Directors approved the March 18, 2021 Board Directors main and supplemental agenda as submitted. All in favor? Do we need a mover and seconder?
Yes, please.
Can I have a mover and seconder? I see Francois and I see Pierre. All in favor? Anyone like to submit anything, add anything? Perfect. That motion is carried. Thank you very much. And number 3, declaration of conflict of interest. Anyone have some? Looking, no hands, nobody. So thank you very much. There is no conflict of interest. And number 4, it is the SNC project update from our staff. We have a power presentation, and I hope all the people online and they're gonna enjoy and listen to our PowerPoint presentation from my staff, because they put a lot of time and effort, and it's well educated. It's educating for everyone watching this meeting. So without further ado, we can go ahead and start with.
It's actually going to be me this morning, Mr. Chair.
It is. There we go.
We'll
start with Angela.
Okay, good morning, members of the board, and welcome to this, our annual general meeting for the year 2021. This morning, my slide is a slide that I've arranged from the staff here, but it was talking about Municipal Information Day. As you'll know, for many years, over a decade now, we've hosted Municipal Information Day as a way to update our partners and to share projects and ideas across the watershed. The board members aware that we are going to be doing it virtually this year on Microsoft Teams. The date for that is April 8th, and that date has been set to municipal. Welcome, Michael. And we also, our focus this year, as always, for Municipal Information Day is our planning and development projects in the watershed, as well as regulations, but we're also going to be using the opportunity for any staff and council that are joining us to talk a little bit about updates to the Conservation Authorities Act, and use that as a way to discuss with the municipalities the platform to have meetings in the upcoming months. So I also want to thank board member Ellen for sharing with us municipal correspondence that has been going around on the updates to the Conservation Authorities Act. And as always, we're committed to sitting down with everyone and discussing what those updates mean here in our local watershed. So that'll be the start on Municipal Information Day, and we look forward to more discussion on that as the year unfolds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela, for the update. Those are very great sessions, and it's good, important for us to be able to have a chat with our partner, our municipal partners, of course. Any question for Angela this morning? I see no hand. I want to thank you very much. Thank you, Angela. Our next presenter is Sandra.
Good morning, board members. This is an update on the flood mapping strategy development services that SNC is providing to the Moha Council of Akwesasne. You might recall SNC was awarded the contract with the Moha Council of Akwesasne to assess the tools required for them to prepare a flood risk assessment of their lands. The contract included providing GIS training to the Moja of Akwesasne staff. The training was completed online. 3 staff were trained, and the training was also recorded and copies were provided to all the participants. So now we're working in the next step. We will include the review of all the data collected to prepare the final report and assessment. The project must be complete by the end of 2021.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Any question for the update from Sandra? Seeing none, to Rhonda.
Good morning, members of the board. You may recall last month I brought you an update that South Nation had submitted a request for funding under the Ontario Power Generation Regional Biodiversity Program. I'm pleased to say that we were awarded another 3-year contract. These smaller amounts in 21 and 22 are likely reflective of the fact that we're already in a 3-year agreement, of which this is year 2, for another regional biodiversity program. So we'll be looking at an additional 60,000 coming in over the next 3 years for a number of projects.
Thank you very much, Rhonda. Next, any question for Rhonda? Thank you for the update. Our next presenter is Michelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. In 2018 and 2019, we completed a detailed study of the North Castor River catchment. The data was collected as part of the study, included headwater drainage features, water quantity and quality, biological communities, and thermal assessments. A major component of the study was a suite of recommendations for best management practices to protect and enhance the water resources in the area. We're now working on a planning guide that will highlight the key findings from the study, but really focus on the recommendations. And the goal is to provide planners with a useful and practical tool to support their review of new development applications. The main focus is going to be a series of maps that clearly demonstrate the recommendations from the study on the different water courses. So this includes things like minimum buffer widths, important groundwater input areas, and cool water streams. So the guide will ultimately support planning for sustainable development in the catchment and lead to hopefully a future subwatershed study with the city.
Thank you, Michelle. Really appreciate this update, and I know this is in my neck of wood, so thank you very much for the hard work you and your team does. Do we have any question from members? Thank you very much, Michelle. Our next presenter is Tyler.
Taylor?
Taylor.
Good morning, members of the board. SNC has recently developed a new homeowners conservation guidebook. Municipalities can require builders to create educational guides for new homeowners, and SNC often reviews these guides on their behalf. The new draft guidebook created by SNC will streamline efforts and can be used by developers, and this will be made available online.
Thanks, Taylor. Any question for Taylor this morning? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Taylor, for the update. We'll move. Next update is coming from David.
Good morning, members of the board. As a high-growth CA, SNC is committed to improving client service and accountability while increasing the speed of approvals. Part of this commitment includes preparing annual reports on permit review and approval timelines as part of Conservation Ontario's Timely Review Task Force. In 2020, we issued 178 Section 28 permits under the Conservation Authorities Act. We found that 70% of permits issued in 2020 were within the province's service standards timeline, and that 60% were within Conservation Ontario's enhanced timelines. Landowners and clients were pleased with our approval timelines, and expectations were communicated from the moment we received an application. Timelines were impacted by the increased volume of applications, especially along the Ottawa River from the recent jurisdiction expansion and the need to transition to online tools during the pandemic. This report allows us to make additional improvements to our administrative process and provided recommendations to improve reporting as well, including the ability to pause review timelines when requested by the applicant, which was not a feature initially built into our administrative process and not taken into account in the 2020 reporting, but is now available. We look forward to working on additional improvements to our administrative process and tracking system as part of our commitment to timely reviews. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, for the update. Any question or comment? Seeing none. Thank you very much, David. Our next presenter is James.
Good morning, board members. For the last year and a half, the city has been drafting a new official plan and engaging the public and agencies. As you know, South Nation has been very involved in that process. Draft policies were circulated in December of last year, and we've been told by city staff that they are finalizing their recommendations to council shortly. Last week, the 3 CAs in the city organized a meeting with the city staff specifically to discuss the new constraint schedule. This is a schedule that will replace the old Schedule K that shows the natural hazards. The outcome of that meeting is that floodplains will continue to be prominently shown as a constraint, and developers will not be required to amend the official plan when a floodplain boundary changes. New floodplains mapped by the CAs will be added apart from the development review process. This is a very positive outcome. Information on constraints need to be accessible to the public, and it's important that they're on a schedule. This will help direct development away from natural hazards like floodplains, and it will encourage applicants to contact SNC to get information when they see it on a schedule. The new process, though, will streamline development. It's one less application that developers have to make, so it reduces timelines and it reduces costs. And I felt that the meeting also demonstrated that the city was undertaking meaningful consultation and was listening to what the CAs had to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much, James. Yes, this is a very important piece of our official plan, and I'm glad that the CAs is putting in input and putting their comment and working with the city staff for making sure our watershed is protected, and of course our floodplain is included in those documents. So thank you very much. Any question or comment for James? Seeing none, thank you very much. Appreciate all the effort and work. Our next presenter is Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to provide an update to the Board of Directors. I am sitting in two new working groups. The first one is the Floodplain Standards subgroup, and the goal of the committee is to prepare the national standardization of floodplain mapping guidelines and best practices. The committee is hosted by the Standards Council of Canada, Natural Resources Canada, and Public Safety Canada. We meet every 2 months, and the deadline for the first draft on the standardization is in the fall of 2021. The second committee that I am sitting at is the Natural Hazards Technical Guides Subcommittee, and the goal of this committee is to prepare the update of the provincial floodplain guidelines. The provincial floodplain guidelines are really old. They are from 2002, and it's a great opportunity to provide feedback. This committee is hosted by the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry. Participating in these two committees is a great opportunity, as I can bring the Eastern Ontario perspective into the provincial and federal context. If there is any questions.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for your update and presentation. Any question or comment from board member? Seeing none, thank you very much, Sandra. And our next update and presenter is Omar.
Good morning, members of the board. South Nation Conservation issued a watershed condition statement on March 9 due to seasonal rise in temperatures that were forecasted by weather outlets. This was the first melt of 2021, so up until last weekend, snowpack within the South Nation River watershed was measured to be higher than normal, but nothing we have not experienced in the past 6 years. So snow surveys were conducted again this week, and the data has shown there has been a significant reduction in snowpack, especially in the upper regions of the watershed. So before last week and before the melt started, SNC dam operators made sure the gate heaters were on and that it was set on automatic to maintain appropriate water levels. And over the weekend, flood duty officers and dam operators were constantly monitoring watershed conditions at the Chesterville Dam to make sure everything was running smoothly, and so it did. So what's ahead? The weekend going into next week, we will be seeing sunny skies with daytime highs above zero, while nighttime temperatures drop to just below zero to help to have a nice gradual slow melt within the watershed. SNC staff will continuously monitor the watershed and provide updates as conditions change.
Thank you, Omar. It's early to predict what's going to happen, I'm assuming, but it's from the data we have of what we see in the previous year. You think Mother Nature is like working on our side so far? Keep our finger crossed. I'm not asking to jinx it or anything. I just want to make sure, based on what we had in the data from the years before, because if in the last 2 weeks, like the snow really started disappearing fast and going slow, melting fast. So I just want to make sure if you have some comment.
Yeah, so typically we have two different melts. Typically in January, we always have a smaller melt that like kind of reduces the amount of that reduces the snowpack within our jurisdiction before going into the water in the spring freshet in late March or mid-March. So this year with this melt, I think our conditions, hopefully it's within our favor. Right now, what we're monitoring is any potential intense storm events that may affect the water levels in a short period of time. We're also looking at potential big storm events as well that could, have like long periods of rain over extended weeks. So those are two things that we're monitoring right now. Looking at the forecast, it seems things are going pretty well. We are seeing a bit of rain by the end of next week, but we will keep an eye on that and see how conditions are after, we see how much snow melts throughout the weekend.
Thank you, Omar. I know that we don't have any control over those facts and over those events, so we appreciate the update. Thank you very much. Any question or comment for Omar? Thank you very much for the update, Omar. Our next presenter is Catherine.
Good morning, members of the board. So within the next week, you'll see a new addition on the water levels page on SNC's website. There you will find this map interface, which allows you to see all of the stream gauges, weather stations, and snow stations within SNC's jurisdiction. These stations are really essential for helping us understand how much water there is on the landscape and is essential for our flood forecasting and warning program. So when you hover over one of these symbols and click on it, a chart will pop up and display the information being collected at that station. The user can select whatever time horizon they're interested in, whether it be a day, a month, or a year. And the map also has the functionality to color code subwatersheds based on existing flood statements or low water statements. We think this will be a really great tool to share with our municipal partners, with our watershed residents, and then also for staff to use.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for the update. I love that mapping and I love those gadgets on lots of people are like visual and they're very helpful. So thank you very much. Any question or comment from our board members to Catherine? Thank you very much for the presentation, Catherine. Our next presenter will be back with Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an update on our infrastructure projects. So SNC received funding from the Ministry of Natural Resources to complete 3 projects in 2020-2021. So the projects need to be complete by March 31st, 2021. The 3 projects were completed on budget and timelines. The first one was the Castleman Weir, and is the concrete assessment and remedial plan report. It was completed by the consultant. We are reviewing it, and we will bring an update to the Board of Directors when the review is final. The second one was the Chrysler Dike Integrity Assessment. It is complete. The report found the dike in good shape and recommended some repairs related to health and safety changes to manholes, and the repairs were also undertaken. Finally, the Chesterfield Dam gate heater and fan were replaced, and today they are replacing the cable reel that supplies power to the gate. The delay that we had was due to the spring freshet. We were planning to do it before, but with the spring, this kind of flows, we had to delay it to today. So I bring your attention to the photo in the slide. That photo shows the divers when they were taking the core samples at the Castleman Weir this winter. You can see that he has made a hole in the ice and he's standing. The weir is in front of him. If there is any questions.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for the presentation and the hard work. Those are very helpful update. And I want to ask the board member if they have any question or comment for Sandra. Seeing none, thank you very much. Our next presenter is Jeff.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the board. Today, I'm going to talk to you about one of the main things we deal with under the Conservation Authorities Act permitting, which is flooding. So we're dealing with a site here on the Ottawa River. And in this particular case, this is where the red line shows where the landowner said the water came to approximately in the 2017-2019 events along the Ottawa. So in this particular case, how do you deal with that? Well, what we're doing is working with them to relocate the house a little further away from the water's edge, number one, get rid of the basement, raise the house up higher so that it's out of the the dangerous zone, if you will. That's what we kind of call floodproofing. And then making sure that the site drainage isn't going to negatively impact the neighbors. So they have to provide us with a drainage plan. And then of course, all the plans showing those much safer and better elevations. The thing that we don't allow, because there's no safe access, is expanding the footprint. So instead of going wider, they're able to emulate the same amount of storage by just having our surface area inside the house by going 2 stories. So that's going to work out well, and I think our policies have addressed the concerns of this particular landowner. They seem quite happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for the update, and keep working closely with our resident in the watershed and keep educating them and working with them to come with a solution and thoughts outside the box. So we appreciate all the work you do on the field, you and your team. Any question or any comment for Jeff this morning? Seeing none, thank you very much, Jeff. And we have next presenter for the next 3 slides will be John Masman. And John, you can lead the 3 next update for us.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a final update for me this morning, hopefully a positive one on our Maple Education program. This is an update from the report that we presented last month, talking about some of those changes that we were going to do to the program to best serve our communities and students. If we go to the next slide, since our last meeting, we have gone ahead and produced a Maple Education video. We produced several videos in a 2-week period for the Ottawa Catholic District School Board, which reached over 30,000 students this week. And so instead of talking about the video itself, I'm going to ask Carl just to play the first 1 minute and 30 seconds to give you a sneak peek of some of the work that was involved here.
Just bear with me a second. Just want to get the audio working for this one.
Of course. Thanks, Carl.
And John, I believe it was the Ottawa Carleton District School Board.
It was the Catholic Board, actually, but we're looking forward to sharing it with the Ottawa Carleton Board as well. And while Carl gets that up, I'll just say...
The sound's not going to work on it for some reason.
That's fine. Do you want to hit play without sound and I'll just share a brief comment?
Yeah, no problem.
And just to say, board members, this was a concerted effort. Several staff came together to put this on. It's not something that's posted on our YouTube channel right now. It is something that we've shared privately with our schools at this time. But after this meeting, what we'll do is we'll circulate a link to members and anyone that's interested, and you can take a look at the preview and at the educational content that we delivered to schools. Go next slide, Carl. Just a final update on Maple Weekend. We, as you know, are members of the Ontario Maple Syrup Producers Association. This year, OMSPA has decided to cancel their planned Maple Weekend activities, though of course there are several producers throughout the region who are open in different ways and in different capacities. And of course, we encourage people to reach out privately to those maple sugar bushes. This might be a short maple season with the changing weather, good for flood forecasting, maybe not so good for maple. We'll know more, of course, after this weekend and where that brings us. But we are planning just a small event next weekend, March 27th and March 28th at the Oshman Forest. We plan to just provide hot chocolate and some maple candies to any visitors and guide people through our self-guided interpretive tour at the forest. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for the presentation. Unfortunately, yes, maple syrup time and season is not something you can do virtually, and the people and the student and the resident and the education, it's really on in the field, people really understanding and seeing the saps and how we process it. It is totally different experience, so you can't really do it online, unfortunately, but we appreciate all the effort and work that our staff are still be able to push out some education, maybe for future years to come, and for the schools programs. Are you going to be able to share those videos and YouTube with our schools and our community, or are you already going to be able to do that yourself?
Yeah, we're going to share it broadly probably after this meeting, and we're going to use our school board partners to get these videos out in the next few weeks. But of course, Ottawa Catholic, first board to get on side with this, and we really appreciate the partnership there to help deliver that this week.
Thank you. My next question, are you going to share that link with all board members also to just they can take a look at it since they didn't get the opportunity to see it this morning?
Of course, we'll share that today.
Thank you very much, John. I really appreciate. We have a question before we move forward with Past Chair Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I note the 27th and 28th. Is that just for the maple producers? Is it visitors in general? And how is it being shared? And how many might you expect? And are there any restrictions? How about that for one question?
Yeah, it's loaded, but thank you, Bill. They're all good questions. Traditionally, Maple Weekend usually takes place in the first weekend of April, and that's usually a great open door weekend where producers all over the region welcome people to visit the sites, see how the maple syrup is produced, and in some cases have a good pancake breakfast. What we usually try and do is try and host an event that weekend before Maple Weekend to help promote and share the different venues throughout the region that people can visit. Obviously, that's not the case this year, and so we're just going to be welcoming people to the Oshman Forest a weekend in advance, and probably perhaps the last time that SAP might be running. And largely, Bill, we expect people and families to go through the forest themselves. We'll be set up at the fire pit at the old sugar shack in the middle of the property, just to greet interested visitors.
Sure.
Well, I just, if there are any other rules coming in from the ministry, will that affect this?
Certainly, and like all events, we'll have big event signage posted in the parking lot and online, just around physical distancing and any two-way or one-way directional signage on our trails that we might have to implement.
I think it sounds great if we can do it.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. And any other question from board member? Seeing none, thank you very much, John, and we appreciate the update and the work you do behind the scene. And that will conclude our presentation from staff. We have number 5, request for approval, but before we move, I'd like to ask Angela if she can do roll call just so we know who's in and who's with us, who's not, if that's possible.
Perfect. I'm glad to do that, Mr. Chair. So I have yourself, Pierre Leroux. If I know you're on, I will just mark your name because I've seen you so that we don't have to unmute everyone's lines. Bill Smurl, I have. Michael Brown, I have. Steve Densham. I saw Steve go in and out a couple times. Steve Densham, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on presently. My internet is really bad here.
Thank you. Guy Desjardins. I haven't seen Guy. Dana Farcasio, I did see. Dana, are you still on?
I am. There are some issues with MS Teams, but not only for us, for lots of people. So okay. MS Teams is acting weird today.
Okay, there may be a lot of users on MS Teams today, so we'll do the best we can. John Hunter, I saw. John is still on. Jerry Couts. I think I saw Jerry. Catherine Kitts. I think I saw a visitor from the office of Catherine Kitts.
I'm here. Catherine Kitts is here.
Here. Archie Mellon I saw, and Francois Saint-Amour I saw. So I'm finished with the roll call, Mr. Chair. I did see our auditor, Scott Hodge.
Yeah, I just saw him.
He come on, and thank you for that. And I do think Greg Chamberlain was trying to get on from the review, and I'm not sure if Greg made it on or not.
We're trying.
But we were trying to get Greg on, so we will do that as well. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela, and good morning, board member. Again, thank you very much for joining us. And we're going to move to number 5 on the agenda, request for approval. And we start with A, Board Directors meeting minutes of February 18, 2021. The members approve the Board of Directors electronic meetings minutes of February 18, 2021 as submitted. I'd like to have a mover and a seconder, and we see Bill here, and I see Steve. Any comment or any question? All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much. It's B, SNC committee meeting highlights and minutes of Forestry committee meeting minutes of March 2nd, 2021. Joint Occupational Health and Safety committee meeting minutes of March 3rd, 2021. Clean Water committee meeting minutes of March 4th, 2021. Communications committee meetings minutes of March 4th, 2021. Fish and Wildlife committee meetings minutes of March 4th, 2021. And they're all in the agenda from page 4 to page 53. Can I have a mover and a seconder?
So moved, Mr. Chair. Michael Brown.
Thank you. I see Jerry. Thank you. Any question or comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Number 6, it's a new business. And A is request for approval 2021 Board Directors elections and procedures, and it's from page 54, 59. I handed to Angela, but should I do the recommendation for you, Angela?
So on page 54, Mr. Chair, the first thing that we need to do is that the Board of Directors appoint me as the acting chair for the purposes of the annual general meeting. So we'll ask first for a motion and second.
And I have it in front of me,
So moved.
So moved by, should I read it or? Yeah. The Board of Directors appoint Angela Coleman, General Manager / Secretary Treasurer as the acting chair, and further that SNC Administrative Bylaw 15.3, all elections shall be in accordance with the procedures for election of officers, Appendix A, be adhered to. And I need the next. Carl, if you move to the next.
Moved by Bill Smurl, seconded by? Francois Saint-Amour, thank you. Okay, so with that, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will take the seat, and I will begin this election process. I just want to give a brief overview before I did that. And each and every year at the annual general meeting, we have the responsibility to host an election for our chair and vice chair, and correspondingly the appointment of past chair. The pandemic of 2020, as you may remember, postponed the 2020 election of chair, vice chair, and the appointment of past chair from the previously scheduled March 2020 annual general meeting until September of 2020. To date, our executive, as it sits, has served a term of 6 months of what is traditionally a 2-year term. So what I'm proposing today is that the current executive continue in their positions, but to do that, we would conduct the election following our regular election procedures. So our regular election procedures, let me walk everyone that's watching and part of this through those. Basically, I, as the acting chair right now, do declare that all positions of the South Nation Administration Council are vacant. I do that in accordance with our administrative bylaws. The next thing I'm going to do, and the process is outlined on page number 56 of your agenda, is that I'm going to call 3 times for nominations for the position of chair. And I want you to know that no seconder is required for the nominations of the position of chair. So I'm going to call a first time. Do I have from the board a nomination for the position of chair?
Madam Chair, it's Michael Brown for the City of Ottawa. I wish to nominate George DeRuse as chair.
As I mentioned, I do not require a seconder for that position. Mr. Drews, do you allow your name to stand for the position of chair?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'm going to call a second time for nominations for the position of chair. Hearing none, I'm going to call a third time for nominations for the position of chair. Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close the nominations for the position of chair. And for that, though, I do require a mover and a seconder. May I have a mover to close nominations for the position of chair, please?
So moved, Madam Chair, Michael Brown.
Thank you, Michael. Seconder, please.
Francois.
I'm hearing Francois Saint-Amour to close the position. And now I'm going to do the same thing for the position of vice chair. So the first thing I'm going to do is call for nominations.
We have to vote on that.
Madam Chair, Francois Saint-Amour, nominate Pierre Leroux for vice chair.
I have a nomination from the floor for the position of vice chair, nominating Pierre Leroux. Again, I do not require a seconder for that motion. Pierre Leroux, I ask, would you allow your name to stand for the position of vice chair?
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to call a second time for nominations for the position of vice chair. And hearing none, I'm going to call a third time for the nomination of vice chair. And with the third and final call, I do not have another nomination for the position of vice chair. So I also want to let you know that I can do this together and we have no contested motion. So I'm going to ask now that we approve the following motion. And that is for the year 2021 and until the annual general meeting of 2022, that Mr. George DeRuse be elected as chair of SNC, and that Mr. Pierre Leroux be elected as vice chair of SNC, and further that Mr. Bill Smurl remains appointed as past chair of SNC. And I would ask that I have a mover and a seconder for that.
Madam Chair, Michael Brown.
That's 2 motions.
We have the motions.
That's 2 motions we have now. That when you have a motion for the chair,
yeah.
And now you have a second motion that neither have been voted on. You can't have 2 motions at one time.
We're going to do them together though.
We're doing them together though, they're uncontested. So we'll put them together. Yeah, we're closing the voting.
Is it the same mover and seconder both?
Yeah, it does. It works that way. And so with the motion that I have a mover and a seconder for all of those positions. And I also would now at this point declare that the chair, vice chair, and past chair assume their offices. So we have a mover and a seconder for that. So that means everyone keeps their chair and that my role is done as election coordinator. So I thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Angela. There will be no musical chair today to change chairs as and happened in the past. But on behalf of the executives, I will thank board members and all of you for working with us and moving forward through this hard time and the pandemic and those difficult times that we're not having physical meetings as we had in the past. But I want to thank you for trusting in us and moving forward for the term from 2021 to 2022. So thank you very much. We're looking forward to work with all of you. So we appreciate that. Pierre, you want to add anything? You'd like to add something? And Mr. Bill Smurl, you have an opportunity if you'd like to say something.
No, I'm good. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Past Chair.
Same thing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for both of you for working with me in this difficult time. I appreciate the teamwork. So we have a recommendation in front of us. The board of directors appoint the SNC chair as the Conservation Ontario voting delegate for South Nation Conservation, with SNC's vice chair as alternate and general manager / secretary treasurer as second alternate. Can I have a mover and second? I see Pierre.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just for a point of order, this is report new business 6B.
Okay.
Okay, so this recommendation goes with new business 6B on page 60, where we are appointing the executive to go to as Conservation Ontario voting delegates.
So we'll have a presentation from you, or?
No need for a presentation. The resolution is good, but as you know, Conservation Ontario is the provincial organization that is in charge of all conservation authorities, and we report and we have a partnership with them. We need voting members for that, and generally it is our chair and vice chair, and then I act as an alternate. So that's the resolution on page 60.
Yeah, and that's the recommendation we have in front of us right now. So can I have a mover and seconder right now? Mr. Bill, and seconder I could see Dana. Thank you. All in favor? Perfect. Thank you very much. Motion carried, and we will go to C. Request for approval 2020 year-end audited financial statement from Linda, and I know we have a presentation. It's from 61 to 62. We have also a few guests on that item, I'm assuming.
Yes, we do. The auditor is here.
So I'll give Linda the.
Yes. Good morning.
Recommendation.
Linda will start, and then the auditor, and then we can do the recommendation.
Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, board members. It is my pleasure to present the audited financial statements and the report. I will start this presentation, and we do have Scott Hodgins on the line from Baker Tilly to review the draft audited financial statements, which are on pages 63 through 84, and he will go through the audit reporting letter, which is pages 85 to 88, and then Appendix C is the SNC letter of representation on pages 89 through 92. So I'll just start off with a quick overview of what is contained within my report. Starting with just a comment on the surplus, you will see on the bottom of page 61 a table that takes the surplus and reconciles it to how we present it within our budget document. So the surplus, as stated on page 7 of the audited financial statements, is $43,090. And this reconciliation of taking away the capital assets, adding back the depreciation, and then there's some net transfer going to reserves. And then, of course, our prior year surplus, we land at our current year surplus, or 2020 surplus, of $245,740. And that's comparable to the budget document, the 2021 budget on page 6 that contained a 2020 surplus being projected at $246,000, just over $246,000. So that table just provides a reconciliation of where we were for the budgeting process to where we landed at the end of the year in 2020. Then over to page 62, just a quick comment on the surplus itself. I mean, again, we had a successful year in fundraising, some new project revenues, and I think we mentioned the OPG project was new to us and was not budgeted in 2020. We also had some success with additional monies coming from our municipal partners to support work, both SNC work and other projects that help the municipalities. We also had some, just the management of human resources. We had some reduced students because of the pandemic, and we just reallocate resources to make our work happen during the 2020 year. Also, just to mention on the COVID-19 pandemic, that resulted in some cost savings, and I think we're all aware of this. When we presented the budget, we did mention that many of our meetings happened virtually. We did have a few in-person meetings that resulted in some cost savings, and that was partially offset by, of course, what we experienced in some increased personal protection equipment costs and cleaning supplies and some further additional cleaning services. And where we didn't realize revenues in some areas, we offset that with reduced expenditures like we do every year as we flow through the year.
we always keep an eye on that, and we bring that to the board each month starting in April with an operating statement. On the reserve funds, reserves to us, that helps us meet our budget provision. We also set up reserves for future use, and we bring back into operations previous amounts set aside for maybe specific purposes or projects. Also, it helps just meet board requirements as we may need to in a budget year. Just to indicate where we landed in the 2020 budget, we included a net transfer from reserve just over $6,000, and that's on page 7 of that 2020 budget document. And then in 2021, we estimated our 2020 net transfer from reserve just to be over $2,000, and that was indicated on page 7 of that 2021 budget. So we forecasted to transfer just over $2,000 from reserve. Where we landed in 2020, we had a final transfer to reserve of just over $40,000. That increases our reserve, overall reserve balance by $40,000. And this is mainly attributed to the very busy septic program, which generated some increased year-end revenue. So that's the, in a nutshell for me, just on my board report. But I do want to mention just a quick thanks to the finance team, Deb and Simon. We did this audit virtually through a Teams site that was set up via Carl. And just the auditing team from Baker Tilly, it just worked really well. We had all our, I would say 95% of our documents available to the team virtually. And it was great just to chat back and forth and have video conferences as needed. Just that Microsoft Teams function worked really well during the audit for us. So at this point, I'll pass it over to Scott just to do his review of the audited financial statements and the other attachments. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, board. Is this best if I share my screen? I assume that's best, Linda.
You can, sure.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm here today to present our 2020 draft financial statements. So we'll start on the management report. So this report serves to acknowledge management's responsibility for the financial reporting process. Some key takeaways here is that management is responsible for the financial statement framework, which is under the public sector accounting standards. Management is responsible for the design and implementation of internal controls, and the board of directors are responsible for the review and approval of the financial statements, which is why I'm here today. On the next page, we have our independent auditors report. This is our report to the board on the approach to and results of our audit. The key points on this page is that we do echo the management's responsibility report on the previous page in terms of acknowledging management's responsibility for these financial statements. And at the very beginning, under opinion, that's where you see our conclusion, and that is that the financial statements as presented today are fairly presented. 67 details some of our responsibilities. So we look at and assess any fraud and error risk and do related testing. We document internal controls. We look at the accounting policies used. We assess the going concern of the entity, and we assess the presentation of the financial statements. Next page, we have our statement of financial position, sometimes commonly referred to as the balance sheet. You see cash is steady at 2.8 million. There's a cash flow statement later that will fully detail the ins and outs. Accounts receivable are up $438,000. This is driven primarily by the National Disaster Recovery Program, and 100% of that balance has been deemed collectible via the audit procedures performed. Under receivable from municipalities, we've drawn down per the payment schedule. No payments were deferred or missed. Under liabilities, accounts payable are steady, and deferred income is in a later detailed note 5, and it has a small increase year over year. Lastly, under non-financial assets, I'd like to point your attention to the prepaid expenses of $73,282. That is up primarily because an additional $19,700 $19,700 of prepaid trees for the 2021 tree planting program were prepaid in 2020. Under net surplus for the year, this just summarizes the changes to net financial assets from the prior page, just presented as operation type impacts apply. Statement of continuity reserves, again, that summarizes allocations to and from the various identified reserve amounts. And the statement of operations, otherwise known as the income statement. Some items are overall we're slightly below budget, but where we expected to be given the challenges presented by COVID and other, mostly COVID as I propose. Under resource management, those expenses are detailed in Schedule 1. I'll talk to them shortly. Property approvals in Schedule 2, corporate and community services in Schedule 3. As Linda discussed, we had a surplus of $43,090. That's already been covered in Linda's report. This is our cash flow statement. As you can see, cash from operations was near neutral at $828 drawn. Capital activities, $370,000 of assets purchased. That included $22,700 for land improvements, $26,000 for new vehicle, $19,000 in computer hardware, $14,000 in office equipment, $47,000 in basic general equipment, $202,000 in land purchases, along with donated land, which is the contributed tangible capital asset of $60,666 up above. Next are the notes to the financial statements. These are very similar to last year. Last year we did have some changes with the addition of the OMERS pension. This year there's very little change year over year. I'll just draw attention to several of these rather than go through them in extreme detail. So under financial instruments, under the credit risk, you may see that 50% of accounts receivable are from one entity. This is from the Ministry for the NDMP, National Disaster Mitigation Program. Those amounts have been deemed collectible, some of which most were collected subsequent to year end. Too far, my apologies. Note 5, as mentioned earlier, this does detail the deferred revenue. Note here is the $225,000 in corporate services. That was the levy that was received prior to the 2019 year end, which in fact related to the 2020 year end. Hence, that is fully used in the year and has a zero balance at year end. The other amounts have the funds received and earned detailed there. Tangible capital assets. The reason disposals and accumulated amortization on disposals net out is that fully depreciated assets were either traded in or disposed of in the year. Okay, Schedule 1. As you can see, total expenses for resource management has increased by $143,000. Most of the increases in wages. The wages were ramped up to complete the NDMP projects, and then staff decreased thereafter as these projects mostly wrapped up prior to or on March 31st, 2020. Under property approvals, we have a decrease of $620,000. The majority of this decrease relates to salaries and employee benefits, decrease in contracted services of $232,000, and a decrease in consulting fees of $46,000. These were related to various projects and funding agreements that ended on March 31st, 2020, so the remainder of the year did not have any related expenses. Under corporate and community services, Schedule 3, we have a small increase of $23,681. No material change to the accounts here. That would be the financial statements. I'll now present the audit reporting letter. So the audit reporting letter is just an augmented version of our audit report found in the financial statements. So it details our firm, Baker Tilly, our responsibility to maintain auditor independence, to provide an independent audit return, to evaluate the internal controls. Report on any illegal fraud or misstatements found. None were found. No related parties. No significant accounting policy and principles were assessed. Sorry, the significant accounting principles were assessed. The accounting estimates were assessed, documented, and assessed for reasonability. There were no significant matters arising from the audit. There is a representation letter, which I'm going to present next. There were no key audit matters to be communicated to the board. There were no uncorrected misstatements to report to the board, and there were no significant unusual transactions. No disagreements with management occurred. There were no internal control weaknesses that we wanted to report to management, and no difficulties. If anything else, I thought the audit went very well, everything considered, remote and COVID safe. That's our audit reporting letter. Lastly is the management representation letter. So this is, again, an augmented version of the first report from the financial statement. It just details management's responsibility as part of this audit. So an engagement letter was previously circulated and signed by the board in December, and that outlined all the responsibility. The board has acknowledged that it's met these responsibilities per that letter dated December 17th, 2020. Management has properly discussed any related parties, estimates, any evidence of fraud. These are all discussions that occur during the planning process and throughout the course of the audit. Subsequent event conversations occur after the year end up to today's date when the financial statements are approved. And other disclosures here, none of the members were in debt to the organization not make any related party transactions during the year that have not been disclosed, etc. That I conclude my report and pass it back to Linda. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. So if there are any questions,
Call for mover and seconder.
Can I have a mover and seconder, and then we'll go to questions and comment, please? Pierre and Jerry. Any question or comment? Seeing none, I'd like to offer a quick comment. I want to thank, actually, I really like to thank Linda, Deb, and Simone, our financial team in our South Nation. When you see a report coming from our auditor, and I'd like to also want to thank Baker and Scott in really presenting for us this morning. When you see an auditor statement and coming out that and this nice and clean and beautiful, we appreciate the work, and the executive and the board member, we thank you all for your hard work and cooperation and working with our auditor and keeping our organization in very good financial position. And I also want to thank our general manager, Angela. Under her leadership, all this work has been done. This is a very proud auditor statement that we can take a look as a board member and as a executive and as a team. So thank you all, and I appreciate all the hard effort. And I see Angela have her hands up, so I'm going to give her an opportunity.
Well, Mr. Chair, I just see a hand, so I don't know if it's residual voting or if there's a question.
I apologize. Thank you very much, Angela, for pointing that. My comment, and I want to make sure my executive will echo with me those comments to the management and of course to the team. Whose hands is up?
Mr. Chair, it's Archie Mellon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, Archie. Sorry about that. I didn't see the hand.
Oh, that's fine. I guess this is a question, and maybe you don't have the answer, and I should have maybe give you some heads up, either to Linda or maybe Scott can address it. It says in there the surplus is attributed to successful fundraising and new project revenues. Have you got, there's probably no way on short notice that you'd have a number or a percentage of that surplus is due to successful fundraising or project revenues, new project revenues. You wouldn't have a number on that or a percentage of that surplus, would you?
not a whole number, Archie, but I can definitely circle back to you with that.
Yeah, I would appreciate that if you could distribute that back to me, just out of curiosity, because the fundraising, as you've mentioned verbally and in your report, has been very successful, and I think it gives a different perspective, I guess, if you will, on the budget, since those fundraising efforts come in after the 2020 budget was set, and I think it sort of impacts maybe why the surplus is at 240 45,000. Maybe the board might realize I have a little bit of an issue with too much of a large surplus, but yeah, I'd be interested in those numbers, Linda, just to, ballpark it for me if you could, please.
Yeah, I just off the top of my head, I would say it's just on the successful fundraising and how we budget. Each year we do put a number in the budget for revenue because we are very successful each year. I would think that we're probably in the range of just around 100,000 for successful fundraising. And that wouldn't likely take
staffing, at least 100 on staffing.
On staffing, yeah.
And 100 on staffing?
Yeah. At least 100 on staffing.
Just with, yeah, we did have a reduced student complement over the 2020 season, and then of course some other mat leaves and other leaves.
May I supplemental, if you will? It may be beneficial to just appease people like myself that look at those surplus numbers, that in future years maybe include those numbers in your report, just so that people have an idea how successful the fundraising is, and how come that maybe contributes to a surplus that wasn't budgeted for.
Yeah, I think it's part of our budget process too, Archie, that we can each year we do a forecast on the surplus, and we can maybe highlight that where that surplus when we're forecasting and for the budgeting process, and then where we land at the end of the year.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Very good question, Archie. Thank you very much. Quick question from me based on the conversation with Archie and you, Linda. Our expenses as a director, but from traveling and mileage, and this because of COVID, that I'm sure that we didn't attend any conferences and we've been grounded. Does any of these expenses also impact some of it into the surplus?
I would say some, but again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the additional costs when it came to just living the pandemic during 2020 for personal protection equipment and cleaning services and cleaning supplies and so on, it did offset some of that reduced meeting costs. But yeah, some of that did go to that bottom line.
Thank you very much, Linda. I know that we are spending more money on cleaning and PPEs and all that stuff, but just kind of, I agree with Archie. If you want to maybe put a summary for them and then for the board members to understand the surplus, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, for sure.
Any other question? And I apologize if I'm not seeing hands, but seeing none, can we move to all in favor? Accepting the report. Thank you very much. Motion carry. I appreciate all the work that happened behind the scenes. And I think Scott can leave right now. If you can stay with us, Scott, if you like, but you're free to leave if you like. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's the middle of tax season. I'm going to take off. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, well, we'll move with our agenda. We're moving pretty much good here. We go to D, request for approval 2021 standing committee member listing, and I see Rhonda will have the motion here. The board director approved the 2021 standing committee member listing as submitted. It's on page 94. Can I have a mover? Archie, I see Archie.
So moved, Mr. Chair. Mike Brown.
Mike and Archie. Any comment or question? All in favor? Thank you very much. This is motion is carried. Number E, request for approval annual report, and this is one of the funniest, the fun and the best things in our highlight of the year that John will be presenting to us this morning. So I will let you lead with this one, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, members of the board, staff, and any virtual guests that we have. Our annual general meeting has always been a pretty significant event for us, a day that we look forward to, not just to elect new board leadership for the next term, but also for the opportunity to pause, take a breath, and reflect back on the year in the hopes of commemorating big accomplishments while also reflecting on program performance, project success, and work that was completed to support our municipalities, watershed communities, and the environment. To achieve this, we produce an annual report every year that is presented to the board, and you'll find a copy of the English version of this report on page 97 through 106 of your agenda package. Most who are familiar with our regular meeting process will know that we've always taken some time at this point in the agenda to hear from staff on their contributions throughout the preceding year. And while this isn't something that we had planned in advance of this meeting, Taylor and I did work together last night to pull together a brief presentation to share some information included within the annual report, and also to feature some of the work that didn't make the final product publication that we hope to share with you today. You're free to consult your annual reports as we speak, but we will be displaying some highlights on the screen to help tell our story of 2020. And of course, should the chairman permit, we would welcome questions at the end of our presentation. I'll start us off with some program highlights that helped protect people and property from natural hazards and supported sustainable development activities. First, with our feature story in the annual report and some stats on the number of reviews that our staff worked on throughout the year. 2020 was, of course, a record year for most of our program areas, and planning and development experienced increased pressure and demand, with our staff processing and reviewing more applications throughout the jurisdiction than average. While we do our best to focus our efforts where they're needed most throughout the watershed, it's very clear that all of our municipal partners and communities relied on our staff to help review development projects to ensure that work was able to proceed appropriately and safely in environmentally significant and hazardous areas. This map shows the distribution of the 432 development applications that were reviewed by our team. While 2020 will forever be shadowed by the pandemic and the strain that it placed on businesses, our communities, and our people, there is work that we can be forever proud of. Our jurisdiction expansion within the city of Clarence-Rockland, for example, is a great example, and the partnership between the municipality and the Conservation Authority is one that can directly and positively impact the lives of people trying to develop and live on the shoreline properties along the Ottawa River. After two historic floods along the Ottawa River in 2017 and 2019, which caused hundreds of millions of dollars in property damage, the need for floodplain, erosion, and shoreline management in this area became paramount. Thanks to decisions made by our member municipality and our own board, we were able to add this area to our jurisdiction last year in 2020, so that new development and renovation projects within areas susceptible to flooding are reviewed and approved by our team before they can proceed, to help ensure, of course, that people, property, and neighboring properties are kept safe from the future impacts of flooding. And while this is, of course, something to be very proud of, it's also an area we take great pride in directing our work. And with the added jurisdiction also comes the added responsibility to effectively manage floodplains, landslides, shorelines, and protected wetlands in this new area. This map shows the distribution of the 254 permits that were issued by a regulations officer through the Conservation Authorities Act. Of note, of course, are the dots along the Ottawa River in Clarence-Rockland for the first time. Our septic inspection program is the biggest in the province and is delivered on behalf of 13 local municipalities through delegated authority from the Ontario Building Code. We've all learned time and time again the value in having bilingual septic inspectors with years and years of experience under their belts to deliver this program. There isn't an inspector in the province that reviews as many systems as our team does, and we're fortunate to employ Francophone staff that deliver this work with a smile on their face, no matter how shitty the work can be sometimes. Monique also continues to deliver the only French installer course in the province in French, and was able to deliver this course last year and this year to support this work. And of course, as you can expect, 2020 was a record year for our team. Our septic inspector issued the most permits they've ever issued on record. This map shows the distribution of the 465 record permits that were issued throughout the region. You'll note even the permits that were issued within the city of Cornwall, the last municipality to join our septic program just 2 years ago. This program is completed completely cost recovered by user fees. Floodplain mapping, always a topic near and dear to our hearts, and thanks to several successful funding agreements with the federal government, staff continue to work on floodplain mapping updates in areas identified by our municipalities with increased development pressure. And as you can probably guess, yes, this was a new record last year for the number of streams that were assessed and modeled by our team and the number of new floodplain maps that were created. With the new floodplain maps came the requirement for enhanced public consultation. And yes, of course, a record. We delivered 5 open houses last year, with 3 proceeding in person and 2 taking place online in a virtual environment that enabled more participation than ever before, which of course is something that we're very proud of. Staff also completed a number of technical reports and studies on behalf of our municipal partners with environmental monitoring work proceeding, especially within the City of Ottawa. The North Castor River Catchment Study is a great product example that demonstrates how monitoring work can contribute to effective watershed planning that will help new communities be built in appropriate ways and, of course, help ensure the long-term health, conservation, and sustainability of our waterways. The management of our water and erosion control infrastructure continued through 2020, and we're thankful for the ready and quick response of our operators that helped manage flows during our spring flooding season along the South Nation River. We're also happy to report that work safely continued at the Chesterville Dam to ensure that we were able to complete the necessary updates from our last federal and provincially funded work that was discussed by our board in 2019. Something maybe more fun, but also incredibly practical, was the installation of the cameras at the dam that help provide staff with real-time access to the monitoring stations online. And while we're grateful we did not see the kinds of flooding seen in previous years, our team still worked with our municipalities to forecast and get through our spring flooding season, and we issued several advisory statements for the Lower Ottawa, St. Lawrence, and South Nation rivers. Something that was also record-setting and something probably to be less proud of was our continued low water conditions that were present throughout the region last summer and fall. Most of you will likely recall this video that staff created to showcase the empty rivers and tributaries and help advise on the effects of low water conditions. Because of the increased calls and requests for information on how to manage private wells and other services, our team also created a new series of information packages, which were shared broadly with interested residents. Though simple, these resource guides were sought after, and we really do believe that they helped families change habits and understand why and how private wells can go dry. Something more positive that we've shared with the board over the last year has been our work with the United Counties of Prescott Russell and Stormont Dundas and Glengarry on a joint planning study on natural heritage. All municipalities are required by the province to implement natural heritage policies, and working on this project was a natural fit for our team. Also seen as an opportunity to streamline some of our own environmental review procedures and to achieve consistency throughout the region. On the thought of record setting, while this was one of the last areas within the province to complete this work, it is the first time that 2 counties have chosen to work together on a study like this. And we're of course happy to see our partners work together to streamline this process, not just to save time and money, but also to provide the best possible outcome for our communities and the environment. We're happy to have been selected to lead this work on behalf of our municipalities, and we're grateful for the contributions of municipal and CA staff, and of course the public that helped create our first draft maps of our current natural heritage system. And we know as people, we're better together. The same is true for our environment. A connected landscape will help lead to a stronger legacy. And we're looking forward to wrapping up this project and working with our municipalities to implement this work. Last update on this section, and something that didn't make our annual report publication, but is still incredibly important to us, is our work within the Castleman to Lemieux potential retrogressive landslide area. We completed a federally funded project early in 2020 that helped create a mitigation plan for this area and the remaining properties within this potential retrogressive landslide zone. In 2020, our board adopted this plan and its recommendations, established our first hazard land acquisition fund, and already helped to remove 2 properties from this zone, both with residences located on the property, one on Theatre Road and one along the Segeberg berm. We thank the board for their continued support of this work, and we will continue to call on the province to help support the Conservation Authority and municipality to best protect people and property in this area. And I'd like to turn things over to Taylor now to share some updates on our community engagement and environmental stewardship work.
Good morning, members of the board, and thank you, John. I'm now going to provide some of last year's highlights and how we work to engage communities and foster landowner stewardship. Although several community events could not go as planned last year, on September 23rd, over 250 culturally significant native trees were planted on the traditional territories of the Algonquin and Mohawk First Nations in Shanley, Ontario to form the Healing Place, thanks to the support of our First Nations and community partners. Community and First Nations partners gathered to plant the trees and learn and share traditional knowledge, mark a step towards cross-cultural dialogue, and create and maintain a healing space. Last year, SNC brought its fundraising initiatives online as the pandemic had forced the cancellation of our annual Friends of SNC golf tournament and other fundraising events. Throughout October of 2020, SNC hosted an online fundraising silent art auction called Art for Trees and raised over $6,500 for our community-free tree giveaways in 2021. We have all seen how hard our local healthcare staff are working on the front lines of this pandemic. For National Nursing Week in May, SNC donated free tree seedlings to frontline workers at the Winchester District Memorial Hospital and Dundas Manor Nursing Home in North Dundas to say thanks for their hard work in protecting our community. SNC staff paid increased attention to social media and virtual engagement throughout the pandemic last year. Our Nature at Home weekly educational video series, live streamed through Facebook, received over 12,000 views over the course of the summer. Additional efforts to engage communities online saw SNC's social media following grow to new levels never seen before, and made SNC the most popular conservation authority in Eastern Ontario on social media. SNC's Woodlot Advisory Service, offered at no charge to residents throughout the United Counties of STNG and Prescott and Russell, thanks to United Counties partnerships, was increasingly sought after throughout the pandemic. In total, SNC administered over $34,000 in grants to help landowners create managed forest tax incentive plans and to protect nearly 4,000 additional acres of woodlot throughout both United Counties and Eastern Ontario. SNC continues to offer the Woodlot Advisory Service program this year, thanks to these partnerships with our United Counties. SNC worked with its municipal partners to safely and positively deliver community-free tree pickups to watershed residents. As you may recall, this is a continued recommendation from SNC's 2018 Forest Conservation Initiative to help increase local forest cover through increased community tree planting. Staff were busy last spring as they created online order forms and coordinated COVID-19 compliant pickup sites and deliveries. In total, over 3,000 online form requests for free trees were completed. Over 15,000 free trees were safely distributed to residents at curbside pickup locations. That's over 150 households in each municipality who received free trees. Over 141,000 trees were planted by the Conservation Authority through tree planting programs last spring. This includes landowner partnerships through the Forests Ontario 50 Million Trees program, administered by SNC, and large amounts of over-the-counter tree orders, as well as additional refill sites and tree planting at La Rose Forest in Prescott and Russell. SNC is looking ahead to a record tree planting year in 2021, in which over 200,000 trees are to be planted across our regional landscape. Through partnerships with the United Counties, SNC also planted over 400 native trees alongside county roads throughout STNG and UCPR last year. Since 2010, thousands of these trees have been planted across 37 roadside planting sites throughout STNG. These roadside tree plantings absorb and filter roadside runoff, serve as natural windbreaks and snow fences, provide habitat and food for wildlife and pollinators, and also reduce noise pollution. To help our local nonprofit community partners access grant funding, SNC's popular Community and Environmental Grants program was amended last year to support community tree planting instead of community events, which were largely canceled due to the pandemic. In total, $10,000 was awarded to 28 different community groups to help plant 60 large-sized native caliper trees in community spaces throughout 2020. The program has again been amended for this year, and applications are currently being accepted. Last year, SNC entered into its third year administering the City of Ottawa's ash tree replacement program. The program funding for 2020 was completely allocated towards 108 projects, helping to remove infected ash trees in Ottawa and replace them with other native species. Since 2018, over 1,700 infected ash trees have been removed and replaced on private properties in the City of Ottawa through this program. Last year, SNC continued to administer agricultural clean water programs to help protect and improve our local water quality and water sources. Over $168,000 in cost-sharing grants were awarded through both SNC's Clean Water Program and the City of Ottawa's Rural Clean Water Program, helping rural landowners implement water quality projects such as controlled tile drainage structures. Staff did develop a new controlled tile drainage promotional video last year, which you can find on our social media channels. Finally, SNC was featured in a video series produced by Ontario Power Generation, highlighting our partnerships to improve regional biodiversity and edible tree buffer plantings. SNC has recently entered into a new 3-year partnership with OPG to protect and improve regional biodiversity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. I have a few final remarks to share in this section for work that has helped protect natural spaces and provide recreational opportunities. First, on our land securement strategy that supports the purchase and donation of ecologically significant property to the public trust. And with the support of our municipalities and board, we work to purchase several forested properties each year. These properties help contribute to a publicly owned natural heritage system, can sometimes help contribute timber revenue, but most importantly, helps ensure a natural legacy for our donors in perpetuity. Something that we did miss was holding official property openings for our donors, but that didn't stop the Velma family from donating another 65 acres of forested property to us last year through Canada's Ecological Gift Program. While not all conservation authorities accept gifts of land or manage public forests, it is something that continues to be important for us in Eastern Ontario in a region with ever declining forest cover. We of course thank the Velma family and everyone like them who have donated land to us over the years. Thank you for trusting us with your legacy. Our forests provide important social, cultural, and environmental benefits that we're all familiar with, but they also provide important economic drivers. The forestry industry is the reason for the establishment of most of our communities and have helped shape our now agricultural landscape. Our sustainable management of our forests helps contribute revenue that directly supports this work. But it's also important for these forests to be managed. Because our region was completely clear-cut in the last century, most of our forests are still quite young, and our plantations need to be thinned and managed so that they can one day become healthy, biodiverse forests and key assets to our natural heritage system. Several properties were marked and managed by our staff, and tenders supported the sustainable harvest of nearly 9,000 cubic meters of timber product and nearly 82,000 in revenue on both the SNC forests and SDG County forests, which we are trusted to manage on their behalf. To effectively communicate the need for sustainable harvesting of our young plantations and help recruit new bidders for our tenders, staff worked to promote this information broadly and created several videos to support this work. Something that became increasingly popular and important for everyone within our region and around the world was safe access to our outdoor recreational spaces. The need for new safety measures, including signs, enforcement, and maintenance, continued to increase through 2020. And while most spaces closed early in 2020, SNC worked as hard as we could to keep as many spaces as we could safely open and maintained. As you can imagine, and as we've discussed time and time again at the board, the demand on our natural spaces was and remains high. SNC experienced a record number of visitors at monitored sites throughout the region. Our recorded visitor count doubles any previous record, and we were happy to be a trusted, safe source for outdoor recreation. All of us know how important these spaces have become for us, our families, our neighbors, and for our communities. People and animals of all shapes and sizes use our areas as a safe way to step outside and into nature. And we know that all of our spaces have positively contributed to increased health and mental well-being. And we're fortunate for the support that we've received from our board on the management of our conservation areas. And of course, to our municipalities who we need to partner with to effectively manage these spaces. In addition to our regular maintenance activities, the increased use also needed us to respond to help improve trail conditions and restored areas that were damaged by trespassers and off-trail activities. Trail work at the Robert Graham Conservation Area and even the W.E. Burton Conservation Area are great examples of this, and more work is planned in 2021. While parking lots weren't as overcrowded as areas in Southern Ontario, there are lots of spaces that we needed to upgrade to accommodate the continued use and demand of our spaces. The parking lot expansion at High Falls Conservation Area is a great example of this, and more work is planned in 2021. Environmental concerns impacted our work in many of the same ways as our enhanced community needs throughout the pandemic. The Emerald Ash Borer continues to wreak havoc in our park spaces, and our team continues to remove dead and dying ash trees every week throughout the 20,000 acres of community space that we manage. A concerted effort was also invested last year at the W.E. Burton Conservation Area to help remove hundreds of diseased, dead, and dying trees in the park. And of course, more work is planned this year. Our landscape trees also required lots of work, and our staff worked to manage and replace hundreds of trees in our conservation areas. Work at the Jessops Falls Conservation Area is a great example of this. And of course, it's always important to say thank you to our municipal and community funders that have helped cost share restoration work that helps maintain our properties for future community and environmental benefit. A 3-year OPG project is helping to restore 3 streams within the J. Henry Tweed Conservation Area and help manage ash trees throughout the property. A final thought, and a positive one, is our continued effort to share our community lands with our people. We would like to say thank you to our partners that helped secure land donation within the Augusta Township that will help create the first conservation area and river access to the South Nation River in Leeds and Grenville. With your support, we hope to open this park in June of 2021, which will provide recreational canoe and kayak access to the historic Spencerville Mill. As discussed, our annual report document is found within your agenda package. While it will always be near impossible to include details on all of our work and accomplishments over the preceding year, we hope that this summary and review is helpful. And of course, we look forward to sharing this document broadly with our partners and people in both French and English following the conclusion of this annual general meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John and Taylor, for a wonderful, wonderful presentation and reflecting back in the year with difficult and hardship for so many people and throughout COVID to see the accomplishment and what we've done in our organization in this South Nation Conservation Authority. It's amazing, amazing work. And I want to give an opportunity to a board member to comment and question before we close this, but I will ask Mr. Archie Mellon, he has his hands up to take the floor. Archie, it's your turn. Your hand is up.
Okay.
Archie, probably is. Can you hear me? Okay, so any other board member till we find it, because Archie is not answering, we go ahead, Past Chair Bill. I know you love those reports, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 comments I want to make. One is, it was mentioned that there was a video developed and it was done by an outside group, and it's very positive about different things we're doing. But I want to say and congratulate the staff on the number of partnerships they've developed to make a number of videos for different school boards, for along the Ottawa River and the St. Lawrence River, for instructional uses. So the partnerships that are developed and the videos being developed, I think are excellent. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to comment on is how our staff observes and notes need and responds almost immediately. The River Conservation Center isn't an all-season center, but it was observed that there were cars parked along the road and people were wading in through the deep snow. And they had made trails back through the area and were using it safely. So the staff made a decision, and with Angela, I think, that they would immediately clear that parking lot. And it provided a parking place for people to be able to park safely and be able to use the river conservation area. So it's things like that that I think that make our conservation area a noteworthy one.
Thank you, Bill. Any question or was it your comment? Supplement? Thank you. Archie, can you hear us now? Your hands is up.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
That's perfect. Go ahead, Archie. The floor is yours.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up. Sorry, I didn't have a question.
Okay, perfect. No problem. Thank you very much, Archie. Any other question for staff? I see a hand, and Steve.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate some of the stuff that I've said before in past meetings. I think it's amazing the amount of work that that the staff has done, and I think one thing that I see happening here is that South Nation is really a community organization. Yeah, we produce a lot of you know, basic functions on helping people with you know, the drainage, with septic, etc. But what I see happening here is that we take a very community oriented approach to being a part of an active community. And I think that was so incredibly important with this past year of COVID. And so I'm impressed by the work that staff does in all of the departments, but I think everybody on staff sees themselves as a active community partner. And I've talked to many people who have come in, primarily in the Warwick Trail, because that's where I tend to spend my time. But I've met new people that have never been in my municipality before, who walk away with a big smile on their face, who think about other things that are going on in our community. So it's a real drawing card. So again, I think the power there is, yes, we produce the day-to-day work that needs to get done, but everybody does it realizing that these are the things that make our community better. And I think that just speaks volumes. So I just want to thank staff, not just for the technical work you do every day, but really how you conduct that work on a day-to-day basis, and how you make our community a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Well said, and we all, as a board member, we echo your compliment and your notes to staff and of course to the management. So thank you. Any other question or comment? Seeing none, I know while the presentation was going, I could see the crowd and how Angela's face is lit up by every time a slide comes on, and Taylor and John did an amazing job presenting on behalf of our staff at SNC, because all this work has happened. It's a team effort, and it's all the organization working collectively together. Well said, well put. You've done an amazing job, all of you. Bravo, thank you very much for all your hard work. So thank you. And we have a recommendation. Yeah. The board director approved the 2020 annual report, and I see Catherine Kitt's hand up, and I see Steve's hands up. All in favor? Thank you very much, and very proud moment, and very proud report. Thank you both, gentlemen. Next, F, it's on page 107 to 123. It's a 2020 Conservation Areas Visitor Report, and John is going to give us a quick update, I'm assuming.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple brief comments. For me, of course, this is a topic that we've discussed throughout the year. It's something that's very important for us to continue monitoring. This report is an annual one. It's a report that was recommended back in 2015 by our board. We felt that it was important to monitor our conservation areas, to gauge our visitor use, and of course, direct our efforts where they're needed most. And we found certainly throughout the pandemic that we were fortunate to have this monitoring program in place, because it really did enable quick response and quick summative actions on what was going on in our conservation areas. So we have presented the annual conservation area monitoring report within this package. You can find it on page 110 of your agenda package through to the end on page 123. There are a couple charts in this report. I'll draw your attention first to the one within the main agenda package on the stats. Of course, this is no surprise. We included these details within our annual report. But as discussed previously, we did see a doubling of our average annual visitor count at our conservation areas, despite some of our temporary closures and other measures that were in place. So the report in your agenda package outlines the observations that were reported by our staff. It gives you a fulsome look at which parks were being used and when they were being used, and of course compares those trends over time. So I won't go into the details of this report. It is presented for information. It is an often a regular conversation between board and committee members wondering how our spaces are being used. So this is of course a public information piece that you're free to consult and review at your pleasure. But I will point out a few things. First, on page 116 of that report, there is a summary on our recent additions to the conservation area network. Those are 3 properties that were donated that eventually became parks, and these are important to spotlight, specifically the Reveler Conservation Area in North Stormont, the Oshman Forest Conservation Area in North Dundas, and the future site within Augusta Township, hopefully to be named the Mill Run Conservation Area, which we hope to open later this year. And a final comment from me, I will point your attention to page 123 within the report. These recommendations are based on the objectives set out by the board in 2015 for the continued monitoring of our conservation areas. These are all things that we've discussed at a staff level, at a board level before, but they are a good path forward for us as staff to continue monitoring our spaces and to do our best to share them with our communities. So if there are any questions on these recommendations or details within the report, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you very much, John, for the report. And any question or Steve, leave your hands up, or this is just from previous? Perfect. Thank you. There is no question. I'm looking at the number, and I had to look at twice, because when I looked at from 2019 to 2020, from 92,000 to 177,000, I was like, what a amazing facility, and actually parks we're offering for residents. Of course, during COVID, people want to just go out, and it's so nice to see those numbers and reflecting on the report. So thank you very much for that, and we're really happy that you keep monitoring this number for us to the board information. Also, I want to mention a quick thing, just put it out there. I was listening this morning to the news, and I saw that St. Lawrence Park received $5 million from improvement for their parks, also to do all the work on their properties, because of course more people want to go out and more people want to engage to be out in nature coming up spring and summer. And I'm hoping that our team will be looking also some of those funding to improve some of our properties. So I'm just putting it out there. So thank you very much, John. We have a recommendation. The board directors receive and file the 2020 Conservation Area Monitoring Report. And further that, the board directors recommend that staff continue to monitor conservation areas to inform the management of these public spaces. And I have a mover and a seconder. See Steve's hands up, and Jay and Archie. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much, John. Next, we have a request for approval, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada Partnership and PACT. Do you have any comment or?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased to present an opportunity to partner with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in helping to protect Canada's biodiversity. They'd like to do this by joining to existing SNC projects by contributing staff time to complete tasks associated with those projects. In addition, they would provide financial support to cover any additional costs that SNC may incur, up to an upset limit of $8,000 associated with their involvement in these existing projects. The two projects are our work with invasive species control on the Gamble and Garland Side Road properties, which is supported by Ontario Power Generation, and our grassland rehabilitation on our property near Shanley in Edwardsburg Cardinal, which will be supported by the Grasslands Ontario.
Thank you very much, Pat. And a recommendation of Board Directors approve a partnership with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada for monitoring and preservation of generic plant material on South Nation Conservation owned lands at approximate amount of 8,000 plus HST. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? I see Archie and Jerry. And any question or comment to Pat before we vote on that?
A quick question, Mr. Chair. Am I correct, for the grasslands, you look at having them mowed towards the end of each year so weedy trees and those sorts of things don't spring up and destroy them?
That is correct.
That's it. Okay. Good, Bill. Thank you very much, Pat. And no more question or comment. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much, Pat. H, it's request for approval flood and erosion hazard mapping. Sandra will from page 126 to 128.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, my report is in page 26 of your agenda. So the mapping for the Findlay Creek and North Castor floodplain and erosion mapping was complete in by March 31st, 2020. So it was just when we started with the problem with the COVID-19. So to complete the consultation requirements, SNC hosted a virtual natural hazard mapping open house. That happened on November 10th, 2020. The invitations to this open house were sent to 207 affected properties, property owners, developers, and other stakeholders. The public notice was published in the Ottawa Citizen and the Ottawa Sun newspaper 20 days before 20 business days before the open house. So the live stream of the open house was viewed 93 times on SNC YouTube, and staff presented draft maps and provided further information on natural hazards mapping, floodplain, and erosion hazards, and all the SNC programs and services. As the area is adjacent to the Findlay Creek community, we had an increased number of requests to review the maps in comparison to other floodplain mappings that we had prepared. Staff met individually with 8 interested property owners and a developer to further discuss the natural hazards maps and their implications on their lands. And then after reviewing the map, none of the public feedback impacted these maps or the South Nation regulation line that it was delineated. So the 1 in 100-year flood and erosion lines are ready and they are suitable for use in the South Nation regulation limits mapping referred to in section 2 of the Ontario Regulation 17006. And in the municipal land use planning and development approval process under the Planning Act. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I know this has been a long time project coming, and we appreciate all the work and the public consultation and taking the time for doing presentation on one-on-one. I know you've done a lot of work and your team for that. We do have a recommendation of the board directors receive and file the Findlay Creek and North Castor River flood hazard and erosion hazard mapping reports and associate map as the best information available to establish flood hazard and regulation limits along the watercourse, and further that the reports and maps be used by South Nation Conservation's planning and regulations program and other watershed management activities effective immediately. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? I see Dana and I see Francois. Any question or comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Mr. Chair, I would like to add, if somebody would like to see the maps, I have prepared a digital a invite to anybody who wants to see the map. We can share it with them today.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sandra.
You're welcome.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Motion carried. We appreciate all the work, Sandra. Thank you very much. Next is update municipal request locally significant wetlands, and will be Allison and an agenda from page 129 to 132.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, board members. As you know, staff both in planning and regulations work actively with our municipalities. Often we're called when there are interferences with wetlands, with tree cover, and there's an area within the township of Alfred Plantagenet where we've spent quite a bit of time lately trying to find a resolution to a troubling issue there. As a result of all the hard work that's been going on with Jeff and his team, we have been working with the municipal staff and council to discuss the possibility of regulating locally significant wetlands. And these wetland areas are extremely important to the municipality, both for the purposes of flood protection and also the long-term preservation of their natural heritage. One of the areas that is currently under a lot of pressure is part of the natural heritage system. It's a core natural area, and it's currently not listed as a provincially significant wetland. So you may know that wetlands are scored by the Ministry of Natural Resources as provincially significant. There are also other wetlands on our landscape which have extremely important functions, which may not be deemed provincially significant. In some cases, these wetlands haven't been evaluated. In some cases, the evaluation may be outdated, or they may not have scored high enough based on certain criteria. But these wetlands provide a lot of local services to municipalities and social benefits. Flood attenuation is one, but groundwater recharge, wildlife refuge, forest cover, and a lot of recreational and educational opportunities are also part of what make these important to our local communities. In the past, the Board of Directors has considered the opportunity to regulate locally significant wetlands. However, it was decided that this could be phased in gradually over time through presentations and discussions with municipalities, which is what has occurred, and with support from each municipality. It's the board's approach to encourage municipalities to adopt these regulations as their issues arise, and the board of the day recognize that this approach would require review over time. Excuse me. So this brings us to today, where the Council of Alfred Plantagenet has passed a council resolution, which is attached as correspondence, requesting that we begin some staff level discussions with both the municipality and the county to look at designating, zoning, and regulating locally significant wetlands within their municipality. We are able to do this under our CA legislation, but we would have to update our policies to permit this. We would also have to update our mapping. These updates would be locally specific and fairly minor. However, there would be in-house effort required to update our maps of these areas. The first step, however, is to meet with the municipality and determine what locally significant means to them. This will help us scope our level of effort and come back to the board at a future date with a better estimate of what this would look like. So at this time, I welcome any questions or comments from the board.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Yeah, okay, I had my hand up. All right, thank you. Allison, should we wait for the natural heritage study, or we can go ahead with that? And also with that question, SNC could help a municipality to identify those areas?
Yeah, so for the natural heritage question, that's a great question. If there's any official plan updates required, we would do them all at the same time. So we're still looking pretty far in the future. By the time we're ready to do any kind of update on these wetlands, we would be wrapping up our natural heritage project with the county. So everything will dovetail nicely on the natural heritage, and we're very confident that these areas of municipal interest are part of the natural heritage system. That will not change. So that should be good. Secondly, yes, we have spoken with our neighboring CAs who
do this kind of regulation of locally significant wetlands, and they have shared with us a process to do it. So, you know, once we undertake it for one municipality, it would be fairly simple, although time consuming, to do it again for another municipality. So we will have a process that will work for everyone.
Okay, thank you. And supplementary, and I'm just looking at my map here. The Moose Creek bog, I think, does not exist anymore, or it was taken out of the significant wetlands. Like, we could add some land, but could we also remove some lands?
So we can't remove a provincially significant wetland. However, the ministry can, which is what you're referring to. So the ministry controls that. And then in terms of what you want to add as a wetland that's locally significant, that is up to the municipality to decide at the end of the day. So you would have the ability to determine that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Any other question or comment? I know that Bill put his hand up, so go ahead, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. These are sort of questions from a way back, but they go along with, if a municipality declares wetlands that are on private land to be significant, does that just mean the owner is then responsible for gaining or getting very little from them? And this also goes along with questions I've been asked by people that own forests. And that's one of the reasons I think that often when there's a wish or a feeling that there's going to be a bylaw brought down, some of the farmers bring in the heavy equipment and get rid of that forest immediately so they don't have to contend with maintaining something forever and not getting anything back from it. And I realize that our forestry department has been working with people, farmers especially, to let them know the value of their forests and how they can harvest some of them and maintain them as an up-to-date regular forest. But those are two areas that some people ask me about. When we make these rules, whether it has to do with don't cut your forests or whether it has to do with wetlands, if they're on farmland, is there any thing that protects or gives the farmer any support?
Okay, that's a great question, Bill. I would say they sort of, I sense two questions there. So one is what happens to people's property when a wetland regulation, zoning and designation would come in. Something to discuss, but in other jurisdictions, people can maintain the right to develop. They just don't necessarily have the ability to sever new building lots, but you don't take away development rights from people with existing lots of record. In terms of agriculture, that's permitted for a provincially significant wetland. That's permitted within the buffer zone, but not within the wetland proper. So no interference to a wetland. So no tree clearing in terms of like a clear cutting scenario, whereas wood cutting and recreational trail cutting would be fine. So it would impact tree clearing. But I think in the context of Alfred Plantagenet, they've spent about a year or more now working on a tree conservation bylaw. So that's already kind of stirred up a lot of feelings and emotions and maybe chainsaws in their area. This is almost another way to tackle the problem where you're focusing more on lands that are wet all the time. We've talked about the way to find balance with agriculture and saying that class 6 lands and organic soil lands maybe aren't for farming. Whereas we do need agriculture on our good lands. So I feel that this strikes a good balance. It's something we've talked about with our Agricultural Forest Cover Committee as well. And the other thing to note is that, yeah, public engagement is going to be very important. But by working with the municipality, we kind of merge our processes. We would have a zoning open house process along with the regulations process. So it really is something not to be rushed, and it's something where the municipality has to be on board, or politically it won't happen. But there are unique pressures in Alfred Plantagenet that they're trying to manage. So I hear them on this, and I do support looking into it and seeing how we can find a resolution that works for everyone.
Perhaps, Mr. Chair, I could just mention that this may be where organizations such as ALICE, Alternate Land Use Support, comes in, and they will actually work with Delta Waterfowl and with South Nation and with others, helping the farmers to develop a special area and actually paying them so much an acre for land taken out of production.
Yeah, I just, through Mr. Chair, I just want to be really clear on this before we get into what will be, I know, a very big discussion about this topic. What we have here provincially, right? What we have is a suite of regulations options that we can interpret on a watershed basis. So the watershed basis we've used here at South Nation is that we will regulate provincially significant wetlands.
Yes.
We will not regulate all wetlands up into over 2 hectares. That is the board's position and that is our policy. And that will remain our policy. However, what we do have is a resolution from a municipality asking us if they do the right planning exercise, if we will help them with that. And that we are prepared, I think, to do, but we are not changing our overriding policy. And I know what that means, I guess, is what we want to be clear that staff have had a long discussion about it. And that's why we thought it was really important to say, okay, if you're serious about this, we'd like to see that your council is serious about this. And if you are serious about this, we want to know that your planning documents through an appropriate process will reflect that and give your residents notice that this is what you wish to do. So we're working only within the framework of what the municipality chooses. We're not leading this. We are supporting partners. Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Angela. This is a very controversial file, and we don't need to look at that the South Nation is leading that. So I think the recommendation is very clear. Yeah. It's an opportunity to staff to discuss it with the township, and then I think they're going to be back.
And the thing all conservation authorities and ours in particular must remain mindful of is that we are under a regulatory review from the province, and we're not prepared to step where the province may provide guidance in the next 12 months. So I present it just as that before we take many more questions. We are not going to step, we're not going to color outside of the lines until we know what's appropriate.
Thank you very much, Angela. Very good clarification. I have Archie has a question. So sorry, Bill, you done? You okay?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, Archie, go ahead.
Yes, I think my questions have been answered. So this initiative has to be taken. The initiative has to be taken by the municipality or the township to ask South Nation to regulate or oversee locally significant wetlands. Is that not right, Angela?
That's correct.
Okay, and there will be an opportunity for homeowners, landowners, whatnot, to a public meeting or consultation process for something like this. Will there? Is that correct? Through the planning act or planning procedure.
That's correct.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. I just caution, like, being the farmer in me, I guess, that this will scare. If it lands in a particular municipality or township, this will scare a lot of people. And I'll warn you, and I'll say it right out loud, that a lot of significant wetlands are significant wetlands because of over the years just the lack of adequate drainage, or the drainage just has not been maintained or kept up. But if it's under the if it's from a request from a municipality and there's ample opportunity for people to respond to this, I just sort of like Vice Chair Smurl has, I guess, already related to. Farmers get a little bit nervous when they see regulations or whatnot coming in that may, even though it may not affect them right in their area, that there could possibly be coming into another area. But I will support the resolution.
I agree with you, Archie, and we'll keep a close eye. This is just a good opportunity to our staff, I guess, to have this conversation, and I'm sure future discussion, staff will come back to the board and the board will make a decision on that Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So thank you very much for the comment and for the questions. Any other question or comment to Allison? Seeing none, the board of directors receive and file the Township of Alfred Plantagenet resolution to consider regulation locally significant wetlands within the township's jurisdiction, and further that the board direct staff to meet with the United County of Prescott Russell and the Township of Alfred Plantagenet to discuss implementation options. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? I see Pierre and I Francois. And all in favor? Thank you very much. Motion carried. Thank you, Alex. That was a good discussion, and we'll move to K, which is planning activity. G, update on site sewage permits issued. Allison will give us a quick run. It's from page 133 to 134. Any comment?
I would just say, John really summed it up in the annual report. The sewage system team is very busy. Monique has said many times that in her, 20, 25 years of experience, she's never seen a busier spring. In terms of permits, we're now up to 62 permit applications, and that brings us to the end of just February. So definitely lots of people who are renovating and building new construction, and they really are hot to trot to get things going already. So it's great for municipalities. It's a little difficult for the team, but we've had a lot of support, and I think everyone's holding up. They're just used to a little more rest in the winter, but that's okay.
Thank you very much, Alison, on behalf of Monique. Archie, is that your hands up or? Okay. We have a recommendation. SNC board directors receive and file the on-site sewage permits issued update, and I'll see Archie, mover and seconder, see Archie, and I see Jerry. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Next is K, with update planning activity. Allison again from 135 to 137 in your board agenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So this is our planning applications for the month of February. I would say there were, which is not reflected on here, a number of pre-consultation meetings for some new big developments, some exciting stuff coming forward in Castleman, in Rockland, in Russell. Lots of new stuff coming on the books, lands that have maybe been waiting for a bit to have their time. So we're excited to work on a few of those that have some challenges. We have some floodplain. We even have some karst, which is almost caves in the ground, which are interesting to work around. So we're very grateful to have such a strong engineering and technical team. And you can see they're busy in February as well with a number of hydrogeological reviews, environmental impact reviews, and stormwater management reviews. Very similar to septic, just seeing a lot of activity and people getting ready for a big year. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Allison. The SNC board directors receive and file the planning activity update. I see Steve and Dana moving and seconder. Any question or before we go to the voting for Allison? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Allison. And now we move to L, request for approval permits issued by and this is from page 138 to 139. I think Jeff is on the line.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to present my usual housekeeping report. And I echo Allison's comments. Actually, we're going to be a broken record about breaking records. Last year was a bumper year, best we've seen, and we're moving that way again this year. So that's great. It's good for the community. Let's hope the development continues. So what you see before you is a list of permits that have been issued that meet SNC board policies since February 5th of 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for the presentation. The SNC board directors approved permits 19 to 32 issued under the Ontario Regulation 170/06, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shorelines and watercourses. Mover and seconder, I see Michael and I see Catherine. Any question or comment to Jeff? Saying none. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Item number 7, we have financial report for A and B, and we'll start with A. I think from page 140 to 142. Carl here for question. The board of directors receive and file the money received report for February 2021, and further that the board approved the disbursement register of $415,736.90 for February 2021. I'll have a mover and seconder. I see Michael and I see Francois. Any question for Carl or any comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carried, thank you very much. And B, request for approval for disbursement for 2021 partnership program and special projects, Rhonda, from page 143 to 147.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just noticed on page 143, for your information, number 2, UCPR roadside tree program should read UCPR Woodlot Advisory Service, so apologies for that. This is a housekeeping report we do bring to the board annually. It's a summary of all of our partnership programs that have funds that were encumbered in 2020, but projects will be completed in 2021, hence the need to carry those funds forward into our 2021 budget. This report also captures some new funding from our partners for projects that will take place in 2021. I'm happy to answer any questions on the projects listed. I'd also just like to note that there will be a second report of a similar nature coming in May, likely, that will address all of our City of Ottawa special levies that are in the 2021 budget. So that report will come once the City Finance Council, Committee, and City Council have had a chance to review and approve those levies. So they are not included in this report. They'll come back to you likely in May.
Thank you, Rhonda. The board of directors approve undertaking and disbursement of funds for the following partnership programs in 2021. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Archie and Bill. Any question for Rhonda, and they're all listed in front of you anyway. So seeing no questions, all in favor? Thank you very much. Motion carried. Thank you, Rhonda. Okay. Now we move to number 8, supplemental agenda.
We do have a supplemental agenda.
Yes, we do. And I think it is 1A, request for approval funding submissions, page 3 to 5, and it is Catherine and Pat. I'll read the recommendation. The board of directors approves the submission of the following funding applications: 1 Great Lakes Observing System Smart Great Lakes Mini Grant Program, requesting $82,956.06 from May 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022 for development and installation of the St. Lawrence River Hydromatic Laboratory. And number 2, Canada Nature Fund, requesting up to $1 million for land acquisition to be completed before March 31st, 2022. I'll have a mover and a seconder, and we can have questions. I see Pierre and Catherine. Any question or comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carried, thank you very much. And that concludes our supplemental agenda. So correspondence, we have none. Number 10 is dates of upcoming meetings. 3rd Thursday at 9 a.m. unless indicated otherwise. Our next meeting will be April 15, 2021, and in May 20th, 2021, and we go to June 17, 2021, and July 2021. I think Angela said there is no meeting.
That's correct.
So she's giving you guys a break.
Yeah.
Just for your calendar, if you want to take down the note. Thank you very much. 11, further motions to the board and the board and or discussion of SNC issues. Board members, time if you have any question or anything you want to bring up. Seeing none, Thank you. And now we're gonna move, actually, do we have closed session, right?
Yes, we do have a land acquisition report in
Yep.
closed session,
And
so,
we have a
and
personal-
I believe as well.
Personal
just
item.
Personnel item.
bypass. Okay, so the board directors meeting moved into closed session for the following reports: request for approval, land acquisition, request for approval, personal matter, general manager's review, and verbal. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Bill and Francois, and all in favor? Yes. We're gonna take a 5-minute break. Diane?
Yes,
hold-
thank you. I was going to suggest that.
I was gonna say, can we do it before we enter into the source water protection meeting? Can we do it? Or no, or if members want the break, that's fine. Good. That's fine.
Okay, so it is 5-minute break as she wants. Thank you.
Sounds good.
We'll go to 11:15.
Perfect. You're screaming because I can't see that part. And so knows that he has like 5 minutes for his meeting though, like not.
I told him.
We officially make the motion for out of camera in open session, right?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay.
Just a reminder to everyone rejoining the meeting, we're still live and
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Stop it. Do you have access to my desktop?
no.
Just a few moments, we're having some technical difficulty as
Can you just mute it for a second?
We have the source water.
Okay. Well, we'll have to figure out source water. It's fine.
Yeah.
There we go.
Perfect.
I think he did have it.
Thank you. Okay.
It's unmuted.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Sorry about that. We're back. So we have a motion.
Motion to enter open session.
The board director meeting move into open session. I see Jerry and Bill. All in favor? Thank you very much. We're on. So, and we have from open session, we have item A and item B. And item A, we have a resolution. Recommendation, the board director approve the acquisition of property 1 to an accept limit as discussed, plus ancillary cost. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? I see Jerry's hand and I see Pierre's hand. And all in favor? We're ready to discuss this item. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Item B, request for approval, personal matter and general manager reviews. I will, we have a recommendation, but it's verbal. I'll let past chair Bill take the lead from here. And thank you very much for all the work you've done on behalf of the board member and myself.
Thank you very much. I have two motions to present, Mr. Chair. I'll make the first motion and I will move each of them and I'll look for a seconder and then I'd like to make a couple of brief comments after each one. So number one, motion number one, that the salary evaluation for our general manager / secretary treasurer, Angela Coleman for 2019 and 2020 be approved, signed and filed as presented. I look for a seconder.
Seconder will be Pierre. All in favor?
Well, just before you do, then a couple of quick comments. I've not done an evaluation quite like this before. It's a 3-page evaluation, plus I've attached 3 appendices. And the first appendix is for general information because nowhere has the information been noted about the salary increases, the way salary was presented in the first place, and information given as per Ms. Coleman. And so I thought that was important. Salary B, I asked Ms. Coleman to give me specific comments on now and in the future, and I've included that information because, and you've seen most of that because you commented on it when I asked you to evaluate. And the third appendix is the comments that I've given to you to help you as you made comments and filled out the information for me. And I thought it was important to include that just for the historical section. So those are the 3 comments, and the evaluation recognizes Ms. Coleman's education, her leadership, and her ability to interact with and support the staff. So there it is, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Bill, and we appreciate all the work you've done. I know we discussed this all board members, so we appreciate Ms. Coleman for sure and her contribution to the organization. All in favor? Motion carried for you. Next one, Mr. Bill Smart. That's it.
Second motion, that after thorough discussion at the February 18th, 2021 SNC board meeting and after board approval, just a minute ago, of a very positive evaluation for 2019 and 20, the salary increase for the SNC General Manager, Secretary, Treasurer be 1.5% per year plus COLA for each of the years 2020, 2020, 2021, and 2022. And I will move that motion, Mr. Chair. Looking for a seconder.
I see Pierre's hand to second that one.
I'll second or move.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
And just to add, Mr. Chair, this summarizes the input and discussion we had at the February 18th meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Past Chair Bill. You've done an amazing job, and we appreciate all your due diligence and all the work from the board member and myself. We thank you, and we thank also our General Manager for working with you on this, and we appreciate all the work you've been done. All in favor or any question or comment before I move forward? All in favor? I see all the hands up. Motion carried. Past Chair Bill, we're good. Thank you very much. Now I would like to have a motion to adjourn, and we're gonna move right after this session right away to our next meeting, the SNC Source Protection Authority. The recommendation Board Directors Annual General Meeting of March 18, 2021 to be adjourned at 11:57 a.m. Mover and seconder, Pierre, Francois, all in favor? Done and done. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, and thank you all the people who are listening on our team channel this morning.
And Mr. Chair, I believe we're staying on this call for the Source Protection
The same
Authority.
thing, yes.
Yes.
Is there another number they have to call in on?
No, we're moving right after. We're still on.
Yes, but okay, I mean the people from South Nation.
So for everyone listening, the annual general meeting of South Nation Conservation is now concluded, and we now commence the South Nation Source Protection Authority meeting of March 18th, 2021. So we have before us a second agenda for the Source Protection Authority. And Mr. Chair, it looks like it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Angela. And I appreciate all the work that has been done behind the scene. This is a very important program and file we handle that came down to us from the province, and I know that we, as a South Nation, were responsible for the implementation of the source water protection. And without further ado, I know we have a probably quick presentation in front of ahead of us, and I will ask we have an approval of the South Nation Protection Authority agenda. Any change? The South Nation Source Protection Authority's SPA approved the SPA meeting agenda on March 18, 2021 as submitted. I'll have a mover and seconder, please. I see Jerry and I see Dana. And all in favor? Thank you very much. Number 3, we have any declaration of interest? Seeing none. Number 4, approval of SNC Protection Authority meeting minutes from June 18, 2020 as submitted. I need a mover and seconder, please. Francois and Pierre. All in favor? Done. Thank you. New business 5. number A, project manager update, Phil, and then you, global, I guess.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I believe, Diane, is there a slide? Yes, thank you. Okay. So as you're aware, our last meeting was June 2020. I just want to remind you that within South Nation's jurisdiction, there are 18 municipally owned drinking water systems, and there are also an additional 15 communities that have water piped to them from these municipal systems. So our mandate as a Source Protection Authority is to protect the groundwater aquifers and surface water bodies that supply the drinking water for these systems. Since we've last met, we've continued to fulfill our obligations to the Ministry of the Environment. We have undertaken some technical work to update our assessment reports. We've continued to provide support to municipalities, developers, and landowners on interpreting the source protection framework. We've reviewed the implications of some updated technical rules from the Ministry of the Environment. So these are the rules that the ministry sets up that determine what activities are considered significant drinking water threats and how they might be mitigated. We've also prepared various policy options to address current challenges and also to address some new threats that the ministry has imposed on us. We've also prepared the necessary reports to the Ministry of the Environment and also to the municipalities, and we'll be presenting those two reports to you today. I'm very happy to announce that we have prepared, submitted, and met with the ministry on our 2021-2022 work plan and budget. That is still pending approval, but the good news is we had a draft transfer payment agreement sent to us recently for review, and it looks like they are going to honor our full budget request, staffing request, and expenses, and that will be at similar levels to last year, so that is good news. My final update is that there will be a staffing change, and that is to announce that I will be stepping down as a project manager. I'll still continue in the program as a technical resource, but Lisa Vandelight, who has been involved in source water for many years, will assume the project manager role. That concludes my update.
Phil, thank you very much. And I probably should have. Phil has been the project manager on those for many, many years, and you've been updating us in the past. So thank you very much. And I'm happy to hear that you're still gonna be part of the water source protection program. And then Lisa, welcome and to join our team. And we're looking forward to work collectively with both of you. So thank you very much, and we welcome Lisa. Appreciate all the updates. Do we have any question for Phil? Phil, thank you very much. We can move forward. We don't have a.
No, we just have item B.
We're going to move to item B. Update annual report from the Source Protection Authority. Phil also will be delivering this.
Yeah, I think we just advanced a slide too far, Diane. If we can just go back one. Yes, thank you. So this report is in your agenda, page 6. Every year, the risk management official for each municipality is obliged to report to the Source Protection Authority, your board, on activities that have happened throughout their municipality with regards to source water protection in the past calendar year. The risk management official for South Nation is Mike Mullaney, and I'll be presenting on his behalf. As noted on the slide, the past couple of years in terms of risk management have been relatively quiet, as South Nation was very efficient in establishing risk management plans with local landowners. So source water protection policy The Source Protection Plan was released in 2015, and South Nation was very active and was able to negotiate most of those risk management plans with the local landowners prior to 2019. Again, continuously, staff have worked with municipalities to screen development applications and work with proponents to ensure that the drinking water is continued to be protected. Last year, in terms of risk management plans, there was one business that was noted and consulted with South Nation, and South Nation and the business were able to come up with a risk management plan that was located in the township of North Dundas. So the activities on that property have now been considered properly managed, adequately managed, so that the risk to the drinking water has been mitigated. So far right column is the sum total of risk management plans and the number of land parcels that are managed through those risk management plans per municipality.
Thank you very much, Phil. Any question, comment? A recommendation for this, and I can read it right here.
Is that on page 6 that the Source Protection Authority?
The South Nation Source Protection Authority receive and file the municipal annual reporting to the Source Protection Authority. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Pierre and Catherine. I think it's Catherine. Okay, okay.
Sure.
All in favor? Thank you very much. And we move to C, also with Phil, annual progress reporting to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Page 8 to page 18.
Yes, thank you. So similarly, every year, the Source Protection Authority is now required to roll up the information provided from the risk management officials, as well as from other provincial implementers, and prepare a report. It's a public-facing document, so it's available on the Source Protection website. The template is a templated and relatively strictly formatted document provided to us from the ministry. It generally describes the watershed as well as the municipal drinking water system. And in that report, we summarize the number of septic systems that we've inspected, the number of risk management plans we've negotiated, as well as touch on some of our education and outreach programming. So the key takeaways from this report is that as a source protection region, we are in fact progressing well. The implementation has been effective. That's measured in terms of whether it was appropriate and fiscally responsible. 100% of the policies that have been identified in the source protection plan have been implemented. And 99% of the activities that were considered significant drinking water threats have been managed already. There are a few inspections that we still need to undertake, and those are on our workbook for this year. One of the things that I like to put in the report is why were we successful, and a big part of that reason was the municipal delegation of risk management activities to the Conservation Authority. South Nation is a very large source protection area with many municipalities, and fortunately all of those municipalities, with the exception of the City of Ottawa decided to retain their own risk management office, which is fine, but all of the smaller municipalities chose to delegate the risk management work to the Conservation Authority. So this meant a consistent approach across our region, and there was obviously huge economies of scale in having the Conservation Authority do it, rather than each municipality trying to figure it out on their own. The other takeaway that I like to put in the report is that all of our municipalities, our small municipalities, benefited greatly from provincial funding in the early stages of this source water protection program. So this funding allowed the municipalities to pool their money together to contract the services of the CA, to delegate to the CA, and they were able to quickly validate the drinking water threats and negotiate all of those risk management plans that we talked about on the previous page. So it's continuing to be a very successful program, and very happy that things are rolling as they are.
Thank you very much, Phil, for the great update and presentation and your annual reporting to the Ministry of Environment. We take a question, any question or any comment for Phil in the meantime. Seeing none, I will have the South Nation Source Protection Authority receive and file the Source Protection Annual Progress Report as attached, and further, that the South Nation Source Protection Authority approve the Annual Progress Report for submission to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. I have a motion, I have a mover and seconder. I could see Dana and Michael. All in favor? Thank you. Motion. That concludes our agenda for the water source protection. And the next meeting, it will be to be determined, and we'll usually Diane included in the agenda and give us a heads up about it. And number 7, can I have an adjournment, please? So, thank you. All in favor? The South Nation Source Protection Authority meeting of March 18, 2021 be adjourned at 12:21. I have a mover, which is Bill.
12:11.
Oops, sorry, 12:11. Yes, I'm in a hurry.
No worries.
And the second is Jerry. All in favor? Thank you, Pierre. Can you stay on the line for a bit? Don't leave yet. I know you see you moving fast. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful